I'm looking for a word. It begins with a B. It's 5 letters. It ends in a D.
Blood.
Blood! Blood makes atonement for the soul, not good works. And where does the Bible say that blood makes atonement for the soul? Which testament?
The Old Testament.
Old Testament. And where in the Old Testament?
Leviticus.
Leviticus, exactly. What?
Okay.
17:11, you're exactly
I was
right.
going to say 16, but anyway.
Close enough. 16 is good, because Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. That would be an excellent guess, Leviticus 16, because the whole chapter is devoted to the procedures that went on during the Day of Atonement. Right after that, Leviticus chapter 17 and verse 11. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh atonement for the soul. What makes atonement? Blood. Okay. If someone says to you, good works make atonement, what's the answer? God never said that. You can believe that. Doesn't make it true. I had a conversation the other night with someone, and I haven't used this line in so long, but it was like a perfect moment. We were sharing the gospel, and he was talking about how so many people groups believe a certain thing, and he was almost saying that their belief in something is what therefore will happen. And I couldn't resist myself. I said, listen, if I went up to the top of that building across the street and jumped off believing I could fly, that would not enable me to fly. I guarantee you I will fall flat to the ground. And he got the point. And I haven't used that line in a long time, but it's so simple, but it's true. People can say there are other ways of getting to heaven, there are other ways of making atonement, but God said blood is required to make an atonement for the soul. And if you were to go to Leviticus chapter 17 and verse 11, and if you were to read it in Hebrew and compare it to the English, in the place where you see life and the place where you see soul in English, the same Hebrew word underneath, the same exact Hebrew word, nephesh. Life and soul are tied together. And there's only one thing that makes atonement for the soul, which gives life, which is blood. All have sinned. Sin separates man from God. Good works do not save. Blood is required for atonement. Now, any old blood? Blood of bulls and goats, chickens, lizards? Do lizards even have blood? I guess they do.
Yeah.
They're creepy little things. I've seen a lot of them this week. Okay, so the blood of lizards or any other animal, does that make atonement? No. The blood of the lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. What?
The spotless lamb.
The spotless lamb. And in there we see, and for that, I should say, what did you want to say?
Isaiah?
Isaiah what?
53.
Isaiah 53, right? Not any old blood, but the blood of the Messiah. There are other verses we can point to, but I'm trying to give quick list of verses like you would have in the Romans Road. He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. By His stripes we are healed. A very personal person sacrificed and died to make atonement for all man. There are many verses you have to build on this. But remember now, folks, we haven't said anything about Jesus yet, have we? You start dealing with Jewish people, they're going to immediately say, well, I don't believe in Jesus. You say, wait a minute. Now, don't think me a heretic, but a lot of times when I'm dealing with Jewish people, I say, forget about Jesus. It shocks them. Shocks Christians too. Because I'm trying to get them to understand the concept of what the Messiah's function was. Then later prove He was Jesus. I mean, when you go through the Romans Road, you don't really get to Jesus till later. All have sinned, sin separates man from God, good works cannot save, blood is required, Messiah's blood in particular. That's usually where you would bring in Jesus. I wait a little while, because I want to show a couple of more points, and then I build an entire case for who the Messiah is, because there's lots of prophecies in the Old Testament that speak about when He'll come, what He'll do, where it would be, the timing precisely, and all these other things. Okay? But right now, we're just trying to get their attention on the whole idea of salvation and the gospel message. All have sinned. Sin separates man from God. Good works cannot save. Blood is required to make an atonement. Messiah's blood in particular. Okay, well, if you're right, if we're right, that Messiah's shed blood is required for atonement, then if He really did die at Calvary, and He shed His blood, then everybody's saved. Because the world has now been atoned for because He died, right? No. Why?
You have to accept it.
There has to be personal acceptance. That His job is done, we need to accept the gift. That blood has to be personally applied to our soul. Now, for that for that point, I like to use Psalm 2:12. Please look at that because I want to show you something amazing about that. Now, according to Psalm 2, verse 12, what are we supposed to do? What's the first clause say? Kiss the Son. Kiss or pay homage. Kiss or give reverence to the Son. Now, how is Son spelled?
Capital S-O-N.
S-O-N. Pay homage to the S-O-N. Lest he, the Son, be angry and ye perish from the way. When his wrath, the Son's wrath, is kindled but a little. Blessed are they that put their trust in the Son. Do you see what this verse is saying? There's an S-O-N out there who has a wrath that if it's kindled will destroy you. However, you're blessed if you put your trust in the Son. Personal acceptance is required. And this is a verse that the Jewish people have a real hard time with because it says what we say it says. They take a different translation of Son to say, I won't bore you with I won't give you a headache with the complexities of it, but it's a debate on translation. They say we translate it incorrectly by translating it Son, and it should be translated purity. Of course, the verse doesn't make any sense if you translate it that way. But I'm not going to get into messianic apologetics here. We're just dealing with all have sinned. Sin separates man from God. Good works cannot save. Blood is required. Messiah's blood in particular, personal acceptance is required. And look, we didn't even need the New Testament. Now don't get me wrong. The New Testament is great. I love the New Testament. I use it all the time. My studies are focused more on the New than the Old, believe it or not. The thing that I spend most of my time on is intertestamental and New Testament backgrounds. But if we're dealing with the Jewish people and we know that they accept or at least recognize and acknowledge the Old Testament as Bible, then we can look for the same concepts that we taught people about with the Romans Road right from the Old Testament. And that gets us into a long discussion, hopefully, about, well, okay, if all that's true, then who is this Messiah? And that gives us the opening to now talk about all the Messianic prophecies, and there's lots of materials out there. I'm sure Pastor can direct you to them. There's lots of books and materials and charts out there. Here's an Old Testament prophecy fulfilled in the New, Old Testament prophecy fulfilled in the New, and of course we have some resources that we can recommend to you. I just want to make sure that you have verses that you can pull to interact with Jewish people. Now you say to me, well, that's fine, Brother Hartman, but when I leave for work in the morning, I just bring my New Testament and Psalms edition of the Bible. Well, I would say, don't. You live in Southeast Florida. Bring the whole Bible with you everywhere you go. You need the whole Bible everywhere you go. There's nothing wrong with carrying the New Testament, and if you insist on bringing the New Testament and Psalms edition, okay, fine. Bring that too. But bring your entire sword out to battle, not just part of your armor. You see what I'm saying? That way, you're being instant in season and out of season, and you can show Bible to your Jewish friends or your Gentile friends, and then you can even show how they work together. Of course, the consequences of these things are eternal, and so I always point people to Daniel chapter 12 and verse 2, which talks about the fact that some will rise to everlasting life, and some will rise to everlasting shame and contempt. The consequences of our decision and our analysis on this is eternal. Now, having said all that, and at the risk of getting you mad at me, just before we close here, I have to tell you that I've put all these verses together in a little tract that is going to have a nice. We're rebranding. It's a cool new marketing term. We're rebranding Shalom Ministries, and when we're done rebranding it, our little logo is going to change. It's kind of a nice new look. We're going to redo these in a nicer printing, a nicer paper. But for now, you have everything you need, everything I said, plus a couple of more verses that we didn't discuss, with a little bit of brief commentary in order on this tract called Every Jewish Person Wants to Know. Now you say, why didn't you tell us about the tract before we started Sunday school? Because I didn't really want to write all that stuff down. Well, because I'm not a nice person by nature, and I wanted you to write it down. Because people learn more when they have to write and think as opposed to just sit and listen. So, if you didn't write it down, well, good for you. If you did, hopefully you're not too mad at me.